In the next segment, Chef Johnson will prepare lemon tea bread. The recipe yields 12 muffins, 2½ ounces each, or 1 loaf. Ingredients are 3 ounces unsalted butter softened, 10 ounces granulated sugar, 2 eggs, 4 fluid ounces milk, 6 ounces all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 1 tablespoon lemon zest grated, and 4 fluid ounces lemon juice.
Today we will be making the lemon tea bread, which is a creaming method. And the first thing I want to do is introduce some of the ingredients that we'll be using for today. The first thing is all-purpose flour, baking powder, salt, sugar, unsalted butter, eggs, whole milk, lemon zest, some lemon juice, and a little more sugar. So the first thing that we'll do is we're going to sift the flour, the baking powder, and the salt together. Because this also helps lighten the bread up, because we're also using all-purpose flour. We're not using a cake flour. We're using all-purpose, which gives it a nicer crumb. If we use cake flour, it would be too light. It would kind of fall apart at that point. If we use bread flour, too much gluten, it'd be too tight. So I've sifted everything together. And the next step is to cream the sugar and the butter. Now you want your butter at room temperature, because the creaming method is very important at this point. Like I said before, it's all about incorporating some air into the product, which also helps with the leavening. This probably takes a few minutes, because you have, like I said, you have room temperature butter. So make sure that you really cream this process. Now, right now, I have 3 ounces of butter to 7 ounces of sugar in here. There's more sugar to butter. So what happens is, in this creaming method, it's going to be a lot more grainy than if you had more fat incorporated. So at this point, it's going to be creamy, but not as creamy if we had more butter. As I mentioned before, it's not as creamy. You notice that it's a little grainy in here. It's because of the low-fat product that we have. So what we're going to add to make it a little bit more complete are the 2 eggs. And this will bring up a creamier consistency. Always add 1 egg at a time, because you want to incorporate the fat into, you want to incorporate your eggs into your fat. You want to emulsify it. So I'll do 1 egg at a time. Now at this point, do you notice it's gotten a lot creamier? And then we'll put the other egg in. And this is about where we want it, right here. It's nice, it's loose. And at this point, we'll add the milk. And always use just whole milk, because it's also about the fat product and that what you're putting into this loaf bread. Do it slowly. It'll look a little bit on the curdled side at this point. You see on the sides, it looks a little curdled, but that's okay. Scrape your edges down. Make sure that you go underneath also and scrape for any butter product that's down there. And then we'll slowly add. Now I always incorporate into thirds. A third of the flour, incorporate, a third of the flour, a third of the flour. This also helps with the leavening process. And keep it on a low speed. At this point, you should also scrape down your sides to make sure that everything is incorporated. Okay, at this point, we don't really want to overmix this because we don't want to make it tough. So just hand blend in any little bit of flour that was left on the edges. And then I'm going to fold in the zest. The reason that I don't do it on the mixer is because the zest has a tendency to get hooked into the bottom of the paddle, and then nothing gets in the bread, and then at the end you have to scrape it and mix it in, and you don't want to double mix. So just fold in the lemon. Take your prepared pan. Even it out just a little bit. Don't overwork this. And then we're going to put it in a 350-degree oven for about 30-35 minutes. Okay, it's about 5 minutes before we take the bread out of the oven, so let's make the glaze. We have some fresh lemon juice and some sugar. And we're going to put these in the pan together. Turn on your stove. Mix in your sugar. And what you want to do is bring it up so it just starts to bubble a little bit. And what you're doing basically is you're dissolving the sugar in the lemon juice. It only takes about a minute. And I think we're ready to go. So let's check the tea cake. The tea bread. Looks done to me. Now let me just say a couple of things about the tea bread. If your tea bread has, if the crust on this is too thick, your temperature in your oven was too low, or you had too much sugar in your cake itself. Also, if you taste it and it has somewhat of a bitter flavor, you haven't incorporated your baking powder and your salt very well. So that's another reason for sifting everything together. Now what we want to do is, a little hot, take the syrup. I'm going to start with one side and just brush it on. Get the underside too. This is one method for putting the syrup in, the lemon syrup into the tea bread. Another way is to poke holes while it's still in the pan, poke holes in it and pour the syrup all over it. That way, I think you get more of an intense flavor from the syrup, more so than just brushing it on. But that's just another method. You can put as much or as little on the tea bread. And that's it. Lemon tea bread.